Oh my god, what am I doing? Aloha everybody, it is I, the great Clement. You probably know me for doing a whole bunch of Mega Man Let's Plays. Well, this game's not quite Mega Man, but it is connected and a lot of people have wanted me to play this game.
Mighty number 9!
Yes, as that lackluster intro said, this is Mighty Number 9, a game that came out last year in 2016, and this was a game that was started on Kickstarter. It was actually started by a top Mega Man producer, the top Mega Man producer that you probably know, Keiji Inafune, after he left Capcom. Mega Man fans have felt that since Mega Man 10, there were a lot of cancellations, a lack of games, and they wanted some fresh new Mega Man adventure to play. So Inafune was like, hey, I'm going to make this thing that's not quite Mega Man, but it's like it, and you're going to love it, and it's going to be amazing, and there's going to be a cartoon, and it's going to be awesome, and it did not get the reception they thought they would. So I'm going to be playing Mighty Number 9 for you to discuss the disappointment, and actually some of the things it does right as well. I won't always let the characters talk and be silent. I will usually talk over them, because they're always talking in every single level. They're always on the communicator, they're always going on about the level or the enemies you're facing, and they're always talking. I don't care, Dr. White! You not Dr. Light? You know what? I don't think Mighty Number 9 is terrible in its design. I don't think it's a train wreck like people would make you believe. It's certainly a flawed game that's very frustrating, and my first playthrough of Mighty Number 9 was so aggravating, so annoying, and I was so mad by the end of it. Which, that doesn't happen often, but the final boss was such bullshit, and I really don't like how they handle the energy tank system. I don't like how they handle how you select powers. There's a lot of issues regarding checkpoints and level design and all this other stuff, and Mighty Number 9 is definitely a flawed game, and I'll be pointing out every single issue that this game has. But I am showing off how this game is meant to be played, and sometimes it can be pretty fun and exciting.
Professor, Not to worry, Beck. This is well within your capabilities.
You gotta love those cutscene animations. You know, Mega Man Powered Up came out on the PSP in 2006, 10 years before Mighty Number 9 came out, and that had, you know, mouth flap, it had over-the-top animations when Dr. Wily was in his saucer, and Dr. Light was running after the saucer when he stole all the Robot Masters and stuff, and that was a game from 10 years ago, and you get into the cutscenes of this, and not only is this game trying to be way more gray than black and white, where they're trying to introduce, oh, it's Dr. Blackwell! Who's Dr. Blackwell? Oh, can the Japanese government help? Like, no, we can't. You have to do this on your own, Americans. Okay, and the plot gets really complicated down the middle, and it gets really, like, obtuse, but, yeah, they just stand there in this blue room, and they don't flap their mouths or anything, and, not very exciting. I find these cutscenes rather boring, actually. I mean, the good news is you can skip all the cutscenes whenever they happen. That includes inside the intro stage and stuff, but very uninteresting characters, not really satisfied with Dr. White. Dr. White. Not Dr. Light, Dr. White. But either way, folks, Mighty Number 9 has a lot of quirks about it, a lot of issues. I don't think every single level is a total train wreck, but this game does have so many issues, and there's so much to cover with Mighty Number 9. I'm going to have so much to talk about during this whole entire playthrough, because there's so much to say about the Kickstarter. There's so much to say about how the energy tanks work and all that stuff. You know, it's weird. The first playthrough, I was really frustrated, and I didn't like it very much, but when I did a second and third playthrough and I knew the rules of how the game was supposed to operate, it did get a little bit better to me as time went on, and I can comfortably play it and get a satisfying feeling from it, you know? I can play Mighty Number 9 just fine. I still think it's a better game than Mega Man X6, Mega Man X7, Network Transmission on the GameCube, which I haven't done a Let's Play of yet, but, I wouldn't call it a success, though, and I definitely think that it is super flawed, and I can totally understand why anyone would not like Mighty Number 9, but, yeah. Some enemies will turn red, and that allows you to get pellet shots that are stronger and can pass through walls and pass through enemies. It doesn't normally pass through enemies, which kind of sucks with this game's system, because you have to dash into enemies in order to kill them, right? But if you have like a row of enemies and they're all like lined up next to each other and you don't have the red power-up, you'll shoot one and he'll be weak and you can dash into him, but if you try dashing into them, you'll probably bounce into the other people who you didn't weaken and actually take contact damage, and that can be really annoying. You take a lot of contact damage in Mighty Number 9 when you're just dashing around trying to kill all kinds of enemies, you know, so that can be kind of annoying in certain levels, and I don't prefer it over the classic Mega Man style of just shooting things with pellets and killing them that way. You're going to be dashing, 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 dashing a lot in Mighty Number 9. But, the levels aren't too long when you know what you're doing, which I totally appreciate. Except for the final boss, I will defend the bosses in Mighty Number 9. I think they're legitimately really fun, and this is my favorite to take on without his weakness. This is not Mega Man. It's got a lot of problems. It's not perfect. I totally understand why people think it's bad, and oh god, the advertising, the Kickstarter leading up to this. Hey, there's a lot to talk about. See you in part 2. Mommy, I don't know what's happening. Who's Dr. Blackwell? Why is he in prison? What's Cherrydyne? Who's Dr. Graham? I don't know what's happening, Mommy. I'm just gonna skip the cutscene because this is boring. Ugh, this is gross. This water is so dark, you can't see anything. You could barely see the enemies and the pellets they're shooting. Ugh. And here's me skipping a platforming section. Because you can dash infinitely until you reach a wall, as soon as I dropped out of that pipe, I just went dash, 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 and I didn't have to worry about anything down there. I just skipped right to the end. You know, it's nice to have infinite dash, I suppose. I guess I should finally explain the energy tank system, folks. You may not notice, I picked up an energy tank. There's one underneath my health bar right now. So I've mentioned that it's connected to the powers that you get from enemies and the colors that they turn into when you defeat them. So some of them turn red, some of them turn green and yellow. I've explained those. But the blue ones, they don't do anything immediately. Like, as soon as you absorb a blue guy, nothing's going to change. You're not getting an extra stat boost. You haven't immediately gotten an energy tank. But if you keep collecting blue guys, eventually one of them will give you an energy tank. One of them will give you a means to refill your health if you're really low and you're in a tight pinch. It acts pretty much the same function as it did in the classic Mega Man series. You can pause the game, go into XL Tank, activate it, drink it, your health comes back. You can also activate it with the home button on the PlayStation 4. I don't know if it's the home button, but it's a touchpad, you know.
Beck, I'll get the waterworks back up and running. You take care of Cryo.
Pyro did something, but it doesn't really matter when you're actually playing the stage in the unintended order, because he doesn't show up, and then it just makes it slightly easier for you, but I barely know how that works. Here's the problem with the energy tank system, right? You only carry one. It's not like you can find 3 or 4 or 9 and carry all of them and hold on to them as long as you want, like it was in the classic Mega Man series. As soon as you have an energy tank, you have to use it in the particular run you're playing, because if you finish a stage or you die to an enemy, like die to an enemy without using it, when you respawn, and I'm not talking game over here, I'm talking one single life, like you just died one time, like let's say I fall right at those pink spikes down there, energy tank is gone. And the only way to get one back is to absorb blue guys. And if I don't have blue guys, because I'm in the hallway leading to the boss fight, then I just lost that energy tank and I didn't get to use it. Which sucks. You know, the way it was in Mega Man, the old Mega Man games from 1988 onwards, was perfect. You want me to take a shit? You're weird, Pyro. Again, it can be really hard to judge how much health you'll lose from a hit, so that when you die, because you lost way more health than you were expecting to, you lose your energy tank, and then you can't use it for a later situation, which is stupid. It's really dumb that as soon as you lose a life, energy tank's gone. You don't get to use it anymore, you know? Just, ugh. You may notice when you pause the game as well that you can actually apparently have 2 XL tanks. And that's technically true, but there's only one way to get the second XL tank, and basically you have to suck at Mighty Number 9 At least you have to die a lot in Mighty Number 9, because every time you get to a boss room, there's usually a little area where this little helper robot will drop items for you just before you go through the boss doors. If you suck at the game, that robot thing will give you an extra life, it will give you a full weapon energy recharge, it will also give you an XL tank, but that is like XL tank number 2, and that's like the only time you really get it, because if you don't suck at Mighty Number 9, if you're doing a perfectly good run of Mighty Number 9, then that robot never drops it. Like, he'll only drop, like, weapon energy for me because I'm not dying and I'm doing rather well at the game. So you only really get one energy tank, which again goes away as soon as you die, and if you don't use it, it's still gone. You don't get to hold on to it. And that was one of the best things about Mega Man, was that you went through these levels, and when you spotted that blue tank with the E on it, you're like, oh, what's that? And you went out of your way to collect it, and it was satisfying every time you found one. You could sometimes find hidden ones in like a hidden passageway or something that some players wouldn't know about, and it always felt rewarding when you found those. It was easy to enjoy them because they were collectibles and you could hold on to them for as long as you want. Like, maybe I'm going to save it for Dr. Wily because in Mega Man 7, Dr. Wily's kind of a tough asshole, you know? Mighty Number 9 has a very tough final boss fight that I really need that one energy tank because it helps so much with the difficulty that it brings. And if I die at some point during the boss fight, or I don't get enough blue energy to get an energy tank, or I go into the boss fight with low health because, you know, all the enemies leading up to the boss are kind of tricky and I took a lot of damage on the way. Big deal. It's not happening, and that's just a dumb system. You know, it's better to have identifiable collectibles, like to find, like, oh, a big tank with an E on it. Like, that's satisfying. And so many players, every time I see blind playthroughs of Mighty Number 9, they have no idea that they picked up an energy tank because the tutorial intro stage didn't tell them that they actually got one. Like, it's underneath my health bar right now. I have an energy tank right now, but most players were like, they didn't even know energy tanks existed because they didn't find it as a collectible and the tutorial didn't really tell them about them. They have to go into the tips and tricks section where call is in the main menu to kind of know the ins and outs about how the Zell, like the colored powers work, you know? And that doesn't really explain things to the audience very well. And, you know, this is primarily supposed to be a game for children as well as adults. And when you have a game for children, you kind of want them to understand the basics of the gameplay as well as the story, which is just way too obtuse. And, you know, what's wrong with just having a good doctor and a bad doctor, and the bad doctor turns 8 robots into evil bastards, you know? Because, like, Graham, he's not the final boss of this game, and I guess he's the villain, but he's not. You know? He's just an asshole and not really, like, out for world domination. Like, well, we'll see with the cutscenes up ahead, but the characters, there's just too much going on. There's too much gray, and then when we get to the end of the game, when they kind of imply Dr. White is going to turn evil, or at least he's way more ambitious, and he's going down a dark path, like, I don't know. I mean, this thing was supposed to have a cartoon series. I think that thing's still on. I think there's actually showed clips of the Mighty Number 9 cartoon in Japan. I might be wrong about that, but yeah, I haven't seen any cartoon show yet, and this game definitely came out way before the cartoon did, so if it ever comes. And it's just weird, man. It's just weird. I apologize that I'm not using the powers. Cryo's power is actually one of the most enjoyed powers, I suppose. A lot of players like the cryo ability because you basically shoot a whole bunch of ice chunks. You have a lot of energy with that weapon, and it always goes at a downward angle, and it kills a lot of mini-bosses rather quickly, which that I will definitely show off. But when it comes to regular levels, I like just having the pellets because it makes it easier to go a longer distance than the ice balls because they go at a downward angle. And it's easier for me to keep track of all the enemies on screen, you know. I really like Battalion's weapon. The bomb that we're picking up is really, really useful. That's an ability I'm actually going to show off quite a bit. Did he just say, what in the hell happened in this shithole? You can put a static filter all you want. I still heard shithole concept. This is a game for children. Jesus Christ. Either way, here's the 3 powers I've gotten so far: Pyro, Cryos, and Battalions. Battalions is shooting a horizontal bomb that will go all the way to a wall. If it reaches a wall, it will stick into it, and if you push the button again, it will detonate it. So you can detonate it on a wall, you can detonate it while it's going in midair, and it is one of the best weapons in the game because of its gigantic explosive radius, and the fact that it eliminates enemy defenses and puts them into their Zell state so easily. And it's really easy to get weapon energy in Mighty Number 9 because every time you dash into an enemy, there's a percentage that shows up. And if you're really quick, it says 100%. If you're slightly slower, it'll be 80, 70%, whatever. But that is like you getting back weapon energy every time you dash into someone. You're absorbing the Zell so that you can use it for your weapons later, right? And because this has such a gigantic radius, this explosion, and because it destroys enemy defenses and damages them so badly, you just keep using it and using it and using it if you decide to use it for the rest of the game. So, one of the best, most OP weapons, definitely. Ugh! That text box hid that fucking insta-kill right there. Oh my god. That part was kind of tense, because if I went on the platform, it's raising to the ceiling, and if you're standing on it when it raises to the ceiling, it crushes you and kills you in one hit. But if you drop down, not going for the platform, you go into the pink stuff. Because, you know, too much pink energy is dangerous for Beck. So you go into the pink electricity spikes, and then you die. And this is a level that is just notorious for making you drop down into pink electricity all the freaking time. So, like, you really have to pay attention, take very tiny steps. Maybe wait for the dialogue to finish so that the subtitles aren't blocking your view. Oh my god. You can turn off voice acting and subtitles in the game. There is options for that, but I can't remember how it doesn't work. I remember you can, like, turn voice volume off and the subtitles will still be there, or, like, you can turn subtitles... I forget what it was, but I remember there was a weird thing where, like, I had the voices were off, but the subtitles were still showing up, you know? And it bugged the hell out of me. So I think you had to do voice volume or something. Okay, if you don't have Battalion's weapon, you need the red power-up from Sniper Joe, or whatever the fuck his name is. I was waiting to make that joke for so long after I played this. But you need the red power-up because it shoots through walls and it destroys the blocks that you need to get rid of. If you don't have Battalion's weapon, you can't destroy the rock blocks that are all over the place. And so you need the red weapon from Sniper Joe in order to pass through the walls and open up pathways for you. And while this is happening, a giant drill is chasing me, and there are pink electricity spikes all over the place, ready to kill you in one shot. So this level can be pretty tense, pretty dangerous, and I remember I had a lot of retries here my first time playing. It's, I wouldn't say the worst design thing ever, but I do think some of the insta-kill stuff is just kind of annoying, you know? One thing I should talk about with Mighty Number 9 that kind of sucks about the powers. So I showed off earlier that you can cycle through the powers, and you select them from, like, this little menu, and you can't do it from the pause menu, at least not in the PlayStation 4 version. I haven't played the Wii U. I don't know if the Wii U version has, like, a gamepad touchscreen kind of thing going on. I haven't played this game on Steam. But I can definitely say the PlayStation 4 version, you can't just select powers by pausing the game and selecting them from the menu, which has been a thing in Mega Man since 1987. And I think it's worth mentioning because the final boss... I think the final boss in Mighty Number 9 is pretty challenging, and I like to use different weapons for different situations with that particular boss. And there are shortcut keys you can activate to map things to whatever you want. Like, there are 3 shortcuts you can have for the left analog stick, the right analog stick, as well as the circle button. So you can map 3 specific weapons to those keys. But, when you don't have anything mapped and you're just trying to cycle through powers, you can't just pause the action, right? You have to cycle with L1, R1, and then you have to select the power. Unlike the classic Mega Man series where it was just automatic, you actually have to select the power so that Beck will transform into that thing with triangle. And the reason that doesn't work is because you can't stop the action to collect your bearings. You can't just immediately go to the power that you want. You have to cycle through a menu that opens up on screen while you're jumping and dodging enemy attacks. And some people might say, well, that adds to the challenge, that adds to the intensity. And maybe, but, you know, since 1987, since Mega Man 1, it was always a thing that you could pause the action to get the menu. I remember in Mega Man Powered Up, the PSP game that came out in 2006, the final boss was Dr. Wily. And Dr. Wily had a shifting weakness. Like, he would always adapt his powers to all the different robot masters. Like, he would be Oil Man, and then you'd have to switch to Fireman's ability to weaken him. And then he'd turn into Iceman and whatever. And I found fighting Dr. Wily by cycling with the L and R buttons to go through powers made that so hard because I was multitasking too much and I couldn't focus, and I just ended up getting killed by his attacks way too often. There was no energy tanks in Powered Up, just as this game has a very limited energy tank system as well. And Powered Up at least let you pause the action during the Wily fight so that you could select them from the menu, and that made the fight so much easier. I don't understand why this game is trying to be Mega Man so much, and yet it still can't even get the good concept of, like, switching out powers in the main menu. Like, you can't just, like, pause the action to switch powers, at least not in the PlayStation 4 version. If this is in the other versions, then I apologize, this is outdated information. Maybe those other versions are way better, but the PlayStation 4 version, I'm not allowed to, and that sucks. Seismic's ability is to turn into a little bulldozer thing, and you just sort of like go forward and charge. You can't... I can't remember if you can jump while using this ability. I don't use it at all. It's like the Top Man ability for me, where I'm just running into enemies, and they're always getting like their little pot shots in on me, and I just found it pretty useless and situational. That's the tricky part about designing a game where you have to dash into enemies in order to weaken them, and like, you still get contact damage, you know? You have to illustrate very clearly that the character is like a different color or that his health bar is flashing so that the players get the point across that now is the time to dash into them. But, you know, sometimes I screw that up and I'll dash into enemies too early, and it's just one of the quirks about this game that, I don't care for. Brandish's weapon is one of the best in the game. It wastes no weapon energy if you know how to use it. I'm so glad that Mighty No. 9 has voice acting so we can have great, freaking, crucial information like that. It doesn't even make sense for Dr. Sanda to be scared. Okay, he's not here. He's presumably watching the action through Beck, through his eyes, and he's comfortably safe in his own laboratory, which should be well lit. Therefore, he's just looking at a black monitor. So what are you afraid of, Dr. Sanda? You're not actually getting attacked by robots yourself. You haven't been this entire adventure. But yet, throughout this entire level, he keeps going, "Ah, Mommy, I'm so scared of robots. I'm so scared of the dark. Oh!" And it's like, God, shut up! I'm trying to play a Mega Man game. Either way, I started off this level using Brandish's weapon. Like I mentioned before, Brandish is essentially the Not Zero of Mighty No. 9. He uses a sword for his weapon, and every time you swing that sword, you don't waste weapon energy. You can swing it as often as you want, super fast, hitting tons of enemies with a lot of attacks, and that weapon energy will not go down unless you charge up the ability. Because when you hold the button down, Beck will do this big flurry of swings that will swing all around him, and it will do a little bit extra damage, but really, because he swings his sword so fast, and because it doesn't waste weapon energy, I don't really ever charge up Brandish's weapon, because I can just go whack, 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 continuously to kill so many enemies so quickly, and it becomes one of the best weapons in the game, right next to Battalion's weapon, which is the bomb ability, right? Brandish is definitely one of the guys you want to take on as early as you can, because that sword is godlike. Riveting commentary as always, Dr. Sanda. But the other great thing about the sword technique... Oh, by the way, these enemies are super low enough that your pellets will shoot over them, and you have to wait until they jump before you can hit them with Beck's lemons. So if you're playing this level first, you actually have to kind of wait for these guys to get higher before you can actually take them out, which makes them a little trickier than normal. With the sword, though, it's no problem at all. That's what makes it all the more disappointing a little bit, that there are so many problems with Mighty No. 9 in terms of its checkpoints, in terms of its energy tank system, in terms of how you can't just select powers through the pause menu and stuff. And oh, by the way, this is insta-kill right here, these buzzsaws, and this is the first time the game ever warns you that you can do a downwards dash, a crouch dash, because I used it once during the Battalion boss fight in order to dodge his bomb. You can always do a dash crouch by holding down and then pushing the dash button. And they don't really tell you can do that, because, you know, they do the thing in Mega Man Classic where, like, when you dash under a thing that Beck can't walk under because it's too low, you dash, and then Beck just sort of goes under it, as if he was sliding like classic Mega Man games, you know? Because in classic Mega Man games, there were certain areas Mega Man just could not walk under, so he had to slide in order to get under them, and it was super convenient that way. And you just assume that your dash is going to go under things, but no, you have to hold down while you dash in order to go under things in this game, and that's an ability that catches people off guard. Those buzzsaws, you have to get super, super close. You have to wait until, like, the outline is almost touching Beck's head, and then you do a dash crouch in order to get underneath those buzzsaws. Otherwise, you know, you die. You die. You just take a one-hit kill, and that's all she wrote. First-time players who don't know how the energy tank system work would probably just die, and they wouldn't use the energy tank, and, if only they knew they had it. If only they knew they had it. You know? It'd save them on a lot of lives. Like I mentioned before, in the options menu, you want to bump up the life count from 2 to 9. That way you don't have to go back the entire level if you get a game over. But the other reason you want to do that is because lives don't carry over between levels. You find lives in stages, and you can't hold on to them for the next stage. Why not? This game, so many decisions don't make sense. I like the voice acting. You know, you got guys like Matt Mercer, Yuri Lowenthal is Beck, who I know from the Persona series. The direction might be bad. Maybe the cutscenes themselves are not told very well, but I do think that the actors are doing a pretty good job with the material they're given, you know. They're good voice actors with just a shit script, you know. But this is Dynatron's weapon. You basically shoot the pellets that she shot onto me, and when they cling onto something, electricity will shock whatever you clinged on to. If you shoot like 6 different pellets onto one enemy type, it will just do that much more damage. I'm showing it off now because I actually don't think it's that useful for the boss who is supposedly weak to it. I actually prefer using Beck's Beck Buster. Is it called the Beck Buster? I don't know. I don't know. But this is how the weapon works. Some of you might like it because it allows you to... It's almost like Azure Striker Gunvolt, which is another Inti Creates game that is also pretty damn good, but better than this, honestly. Well, you know, it's weird. I give shit for Mighty Number 9, but I do prefer this style of gameplay over the Azure Striker Gunvolt thing of, like, tagging people and just constantly shocking them until you need to tag them again, which, it's fine, but I never thought Azure Striker Gunvolt was a amazing game that I just love replaying. It's fine for what it is, but it wasn't my kind of game, you know? Inti Creates can do good stuff. I like the level design. I like how you handle enemies. And again, I compliment the boss fights of Mighty Number 9. I don't want people to think this is a total throwaway game. I'm having fun playing this at parts. I am a big Mega Man fan, and there's a lot of Mega Man stuff in here for me to love. Every time I criticize the energy tank system, the weapon power selection, the fact that lives don't carry over, there are these little quirks of an otherwise could have been solid game. I do believe that if Mighty Number 9 was released 15 years ago on the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and let's be honest, it looks like a GameCube, PlayStation 2 game. Its visuals look and scream 2003, but if this game was released on the GameCube and it didn't have a Kickstarter behind it and all this drama behind it and all this, you know, negativity surrounding it, I think this game would actually be well more liked than it is today. I think people would have appreciated this game a lot more had it came out 15 years ago. But as it is, I haven't even started talking about the Kickstarter stuff, maybe next part, but oh my god. This just had so much bad will going in, which is unfortunate, you know? I like to focus on what the game is. I don't like to focus on what happened before the game came out. And, actually, before this level ends, I should also mention, this level's an interesting gimmick, it's an interesting idea, but there's one major problem with it. It has pink electric wires that can kill you in one hit. They're right there. If I touch those when they're flashing, I will die. And this level does not have a checkpoint at all. It has a checkpoint at the boss door. I just beat Countershade, so now I'm going to the boss door. It has a checkpoint now. But if you die just before I shot him, just at the pink wires right here, you have to go all the way back to the start of the level, and you have to whittle down Countershade's health again! Why does this level have no checkpoints? God! It's inexcusable that this stage doesn't have a checkpoint system. But either way, folks, this is Countershade. Like I mentioned, he's weak to Dynatron's weapon, the electricity thing. But I actually find it's quicker to whittle down his health with the Beck Buster than it is the Dynatron weapon, because the Dynatron weapon does essentially the same thing that I'm doing right now. He only gets weak a little bit, and then he disappears until he gets weak again, and you can dash into him. And you're just going to where he is and shooting him, you know? That's really all you're doing while trying to dodge all of the projectiles. And because he has a laser sight that always shows where he's shooting, it should be really easy to dodge whatever he's throwing at you. I'm being really reckless, and I take way more damage than I really should. This is one of the easier bosses, in my opinion.
What in the blue blazes? Will, you mean this whole robot rampage?
Is all my fault. Indeed. Or, more specifically, the fault of a robot I developed long ago. The CDN-1201, Trinity. I designed her to evolve by assimilating other robots' capabilities. I found her custom scripts in the code we recovered from each of the Haywire Mighty numbers. The structure is clever, concise. It's brilliant. There's no doubt it's my code.
But Will, how is that possible? Cherry Dynamics shut down the Trinity project ages ago. In fact, it was Dr. Blackwell himself who stopped it, wasn't it? Back when he was Cherrydyne's CTO. I always thought that project was the reason you left Cherry to come work with us and make Beck here.
Blackwell only saw the dangers. He never understood the potential.
Professor? Sir? Are you okay?
Oh. Oh, yes, Beck. Fine, more or less. Thank you. Zonda, I need some time to think. Can you handle Beck and the remaining mighty numbers?
Sure.
Aloha everybody, and welcome to part 5 of Mighty Number 9. I'm still alive! I'm done editing the Final Fantasy VI video, so now we're going to move on to the final boss, well, the final Mighty Number 6.
Mighty Number 6, Aviator, has co-opted the television broadcast capabilities of this tower.
Beck, you there? Careful with these winds. They're throwing off my aim. Lost him again. I'm moving to get a better angle. Shade out.
I've actually been editing videos for the past 2 or 3 days so that I can blitz through all of my LPs and enjoy my summer break. So today we'll have Mighty Number 9, tomorrow Hobbit. Then the next day Mighty Number 9, then Hobbit. Then Mighty Number 9 and Hobbit. And then I can finally relax and enjoy my break. This stage is very reminiscent of Boomer Kawangers from Mega Man X. We're climbing up this tower in broad daylight with ladders and everything. This level has a wind gimmick where you gotta watch out that the wind doesn't knock you off platforms and stuff. And then eventually the wind will actually be blowing underneath you, and you can actually dash in the air when this is happening to levitate higher and higher and higher, and I'll show that off at the end of the stage. You wouldn't know you could do this, however, until you play the final stage of Mighty Number 9, where it's absolutely mandatory. But it's not mandatory in this level, so there's no tutorial for it here right now, but whatever. It's a basic level regardless, and boy, leading into the launch of Mighty Number 9, this game was doomed to fail. It had a lot of negativity going into its launch, and it didn't always start out that way, right? So Capcom canceled a lot of Mega Man games. They canceled Mega Man Legends 3, Mega Man Universe, this Korean Mega Man game that was supposed to be an MMO that had really cool anime trailers. And then we got wind of a unannounced first-person shooter Mega Man that was going to be his own unique series with a realistic look that the Metroid Prime guys kind of worked on. And then that got canceled, I guess, off-screen. We never even heard about it until after the fact. So there was a lot of animosity towards Capcom, and then Keiji Inafune left the company. And then he started up Concept, and then he had a Kickstarter to create the Mega Man game he's always wanted to create. So he announced Mighty Number 9. It had a $900,000 goal, which was broken rather gloriously. And 67,000 backers ended up donating at least $3,800,000 to the Kickstarter, and maybe it passed over $4 million with the PayPal account as well. But it was a really successful launch. You know, people were super excited for Mighty Number 9. This was going to be the Mega Man game that Capcom won't give them, right? And then as time went on, it just got more and more unlikely to succeed, and it wasn't a great trip. Basically, the game's graphics, you know, everyone saw the GameCube PS2 graphics and they were really repulsed. All of the explosions looking like pizzas was kind of a joke on the internet. There was a lot of communication not happening. Like, every time there were delays, they weren't being very communicative of what was happening. And oh my god, the delays. This was supposed to launch in 2015, then it was supposed to launch in February of 2016, and then it launched in the summer of 2016 because it just got delayed and delayed and delayed. And then they kept announcing more bonuses, more Kickstarter things. They wanted to have voice acting for the game, and a Mighty No. 9 cartoon show, and a Mighty No. 9 live action thing. Those weren't part of the Kickstarters, but those were announced after the fact. And then they announced Red Ash, a spiritual successor to the Mega Man Legends series, before Mighty No. 9 had even come out. So people were very like, you're not even going to like release the game until you make a Kickstarter for the next one? That doesn't give us much confidence in Mighty No. 9, and people didn't really like the demo of Mighty No. 9 and stuff. So it was a really rocky road to its launch. And then, you know, just the negativity, the memes started happening when, you know, there was a trailer that, like, one of the taglines was, "You're going to make the enemies cry like an anime fan on prom night." And that got a lot of people pissed off. During the launch, during the a live stream that Concept was holding, one of the PR guys mentioned that, you know, because we don't have any 2D shooters like Mega Man anymore, you know, Mighty No. 9 might have problems, but hey, it's better than nothing. Even the Sonic the Hedgehog Twitter account made fun of that, which, you know, I usually like the Sonic Twitter account, but even that I thought was pretty petty, and I was like, oh yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog, releasers of Rise of Lyric, Sonic 06, Sonic and the Secret Rings. I don't think you have any right to say what's better than nothing, you know? I don't think you have any right to be throwing shade, Sonic the Hedgehog, but I digress. It had a very bumpy release, and then it had bad reviews, and then it didn't sell well, because Mighty No. 9 did not perform very well. Whether it was because of the mainstream attention that tons of YouTubers gave it, the negative reception, all the negative reviews, all the memes. You know, this thing was trashed pretty much instinctively for a good 2 years before it actually came out, or at least a year and a half. But, Mighty No. 9 did not do well. It was not successful. That's all I wanted to mention. And seriously, I was surprised so many people found this boss really annoying and difficult to beat, because I actually thought this was one of the better bosses in the game. I really like the Avi fight. And there's the dashing through the air that helped save my life, by the way. If only people knew that existed. Didn't find this boss hard at all. I actually found this really, really enjoyable. I guess it's just because, like, his weakness doesn't really do that much damage to him, and you can run out of his weakness really, really quickly, which is Counter Shade's sniper ability. But honestly, I don't use it all that much in the actual boss fight either, and I still think it's a pretty simple fight when you know how it works. I picked up on it really quickly my first attempt. Aloha everybody, and welcome to part 6 of Mighty No. 9.
Now then, Beck, you needn't fight every robot you see. Our objective is the factory core.
But I want to kill every robot I see. It's a 2D platformer. They're gonna get in my way. I'm gonna have to kill them, Dr. White. What about my ranking? How am I supposed to get the S rank if I don't go and kill every single thing that gets in my way? Come on, Dr. White, come on! But yeah, folks, we are in the Cherry Dynamics Robot Factory, the first of 3 endgame levels. And that means we're getting close to the end, we have all 8 powers, so we're probably going to have to utilize all of them to get through this level, like we did in Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3, or Mega Man 9's Wily Castles. So, right off the bat, we have a ledge that we have to use these boxes to jump up to, and, oh man, it's too high. There's no way I can reach it. Well, we just picked up a power from Avi, which turns our hand into a propeller, which we can use to throw at enemies as some kind of makeshift boomerang. But, if you hold the button and then jump with it, the propeller will give you extra height to reach places that Beck could not before. So that's how you get a little bit higher with Avi. And all of these gates are timed, so I have to use Battalion's timed bombs. I set them on the switch, and then I blow it up right as I'm at the door so that I can progress forward. And the Avi propeller can also help you lower into areas rather gently and rather slowly. And considering all this electricity here is one-hit kill, oh, you better use it because you don't want to die and redo this over and over and over again. It's a very, very challenging platforming section right there. And now we come to this mini-boss, this computer mini-boss that is constantly dropping in enemies through these 3 tubes, and it is incredibly weak to Cryo's ice ability. It drains its health like nothing, and I would recommend using it on all of the baddies that drop out of these tubes, because it freezes them in place, keeps them still, and you're going to get so much Zell from them when they're frozen that you're never going to run out of weapon energy in this room. Not really. Ha! Some computer you turned out to be! Another ability I didn't talk about was Counter Shades. I got that just before I beat Avi, and when you shoot enemies with Counter Shades bullets, they will bounce to the nearest enemy that is right nearby. So this hallway right here, completely trivial. It's vertical, it's hard to hit things from Beck's perspective with just the Beck Buster because he only shoots horizontally, but when you use Counter Shades bullets, it hits everybody. It just immortalizes that entire hallway, and then I'm perfectly fine. I actually like Counter Shade's ability quite a bit. I think it's pretty fun to use in levels, along with so many weapons in this game, like brandishes, because I don't waste weapon energy slashing the face off of this intro boss from the intro stage that we've already beaten before, but now it's slightly harder. Boom! I use the sword and I just cut him down to shreds like it's nothing. Nothing, I say. Some of you can probably tell, I have played Mighty No. 9 quite a bit to know these levels inside and out. I haven't played through Mighty No. 9 once or twice or 3 times. I've played through this game at least 6 or 7 times now. I'm quite familiar with Mighty No. 9, and it's not such a train wreck of a game that I can't come back to it and replay it over and over and over again, you know? I actually think it's way more playable than a game like Mega Man X6 or X7. Oh boy! You want to get me started, make me compare this to X6.
Ah, young one, not to worry. Nothing here my blades can't handle.
We've got this area under control. Go help Cryo's team instead.
I really like this room, and I really like the concept of all of the mighty numbers actually helping Beck after you defeat them in battle. In a game like Mega Man Powered Up, you could use your Mega Buster to snap Fireman, Gutsman, Iceman back to their senses and make them playable party members, but that was for like an alternate what-if scenario where Dr. Wily didn't grab Fireman, he didn't grab Gutsman or whatever, and so they didn't really help Mega Man out with the adventure afterwards. With Mighty No. 9, they actually get rid of some hazards and stages, so it's not just getting their weakness for the next boss. And I like the fact that in the final levels, they're actually all joining forces to storm this base, to storm this robot factory and kick ass together. I'm fighting with Brandish, Cryo, Seismic, I'm fighting with all the gang in one room, and we're all just taking the fight to this castle like a team, like a group of friends and heroes, that it's actually a nice unity, and it's a nice... You know, if this game had way better storytelling, this would be a really cool, really fun moment for the game, where all the mighty numbers are banding together to take on this great evil. I think that's actually pretty damn cool. And in a better Mighty No. 9 game, if they ever make a sequel to this that isn't Mighty Gunvolt Burst, that might be awesome, you know?
Good heavens! I've never seen its like before. Has the factory started making its own designs? Beck, you must disable the computer core, there, before it can create an army of these.
Alrighty, so this is the boss of the robot factory, Nameless. It's not the tank. I can destroy the tank rather easily with Battalion's timed bombs. Just shoot them at the eye, blow up, and this thing's health will go down really quickly. Now, the real boss is the computer behind him, which again, like the computer mini-boss from before, super weak to Cryo's ice ability. He can drain his health so quickly. Shoot, 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 dash. Shoot, 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 dash. I almost one-shotted him. I almost got him in one cycle, but eventually it wears off, and then he drops in another tank that you have to kill. And, oh, here's another cool ability of Avi's. He can actually protect Beck from missiles and stuff by using the propeller as some sort of makeshift shield, because it actually damages whatever runs into it. So again, I love the powers of Mighty Number 9. I love the boss fights of Mighty Number 9. This stage I'm playing right now, this is legit. I don't think this has any problems whatsoever. I've heard people complain like, oh, I had to learn how to use the powers in order to get through it. And it's like, well, sure, but how's that different from any other Mega Man game? Mega Man 2, Mega Man 1, whatever, you all had to use the Magnet Beam, the Item 1s, the Item 2s and stuff. That's the whole point of experimenting with this stuff, you know? And, I think this level's pretty damn fun. I think it's pretty challenging. I think it's a great culmination of all the powers I've gotten so far, and I really enjoy this bit. Mighty Number 9, it's a game that I'm very bipolar with. There's lots of things I can criticize about it. There's lots of things I could nitpick and get mad at till the cows come home. But at the end of the day, I don't think it was one of the worst games of 2016 because it's still giving me some really solid Inti Creates Mega Man action at the end of the day, you know? For my money, this is a legit good level. I like the bosses here, I liked the speed and flow of it all, I liked how the Mighty Numbers were actually helping out in the background. I think this is a pretty cool level. I like this stage. We are not playing as Beck for this stage, but instead we're playing the female helper assistant robot, Call, who you've seen in the background of every single cutscene. Because while Dr. Sanda and Dr. White and Beck are all talking in all the cutscenes, Call's just sort of been in the background, chilling, talking about computer stuff. I don't think Beck and Call have actually talked to each other before this level. I might be wrong about that. Maybe if you go back to the earlier levels, maybe they did say something to each other, but yeah, Call just sort of gets dropped on us. We don't really have a proper introduction to her character, but yeah, this level was not a part of the original initial $900,000 Kickstarter goal. This was a Kickstarter bonus level that backers managed to pay for so that we can get an extra level where we play as Call and sneak through the prison in order to find Dr. Blackwell. So this wasn't going to be part of the game initially. Well, it wanted to be, but it could have potentially not have been, you know? And the thing about Call is she does not absorb Cell the same way that Beck does. When she weakens enemies to their base color, whether it's green, blue, yellow, red, she can't dash into them and absorb their ability to get weapon energy. She can't destroy them that way. If they're colored and you try dashing into them, you're just going to take contact damage. The only way to get weapon energy back is to constantly run into all of these tiny little helper robots like that one right there. Boop! There you go. And that's how you get your weapon energy. It doesn't recharge on its own. You have to find them. Call still has the ability to dash like Beck does, but again, it doesn't kill enemies. And her shooter, her blaster, has a slower rate of fire, and it's not very effective against most baddies. These bombs here, I have to wait for them to explode and blow up on their own. Now they're bringing in these tiny guys that Beck has fought in previous levels, but you'll notice it takes a shitload more bullets to destroy them with Call than it does with Beck. And again, when they're blue, I can't dash into them to get their Zell. I take contact damage, so you really got to be careful and look out for that. I'm just shooting these things over and over and over again, even though they're tiny and really should have been destroyed so much quicker than that. But yeah, for the most part, Call is very much a slower-paced fighter compared to Beck. It's not nearly as intense.
It's not only Beck. All of Professor White's designs have such contradictions.
I talk like a robot and everyone else talks like a normal person. I guess we won't go into that. Maybe in the sequel. I don't know. We got ourselves a boss, folks. This is K9, and it's by far the weakest, lamest, most boring, slow boss in the whole entire game. Because we have to wait for this guy to do things before we can damage it. It has an eye at first. You shoot it. We did that much health to its health bar. We destroyed that much health to its health bar, I should say. It shoots bullets, but again, your shield can wear off eventually when you run out of weapon energy, so you don't want to use it sparingly. This boss fight will be going on quite a while. Call actually had a whole bunch of designs that people actually got to vote on and choose, and this was the one ultimately fans decided that they wanted. This is version F. I was always a fan of version E. I would have liked to have seen Call in version E. That seemed like she would have been a more expressive, more out-there character, but no, they wanted to go with monotone, boring robot character who... Sorry, honey, you're no role. Roll didn't have that much of a character in the Mega Man games either, but at least I cared when she got Robo-Enza. At least I cared when she died in Super Adventure Rockman. Oh yeah, she can die in Super Adventure Rockman, and it's a sad game over, man. That's a sad, sad thing. If you don't know what Super Adventure Rockman is, look it up, kids. Look it up. But, you're no roll, Call. You're no roll. Right now, I'm going to manage my hotkeys so that I can use 3 specific weapons for that fight. Brandish's sword ability, Battalion's bombs, and Cryo's ice attack. Because again, you can't just pause the game and cycle through the powers while the game is paused, and I don't want to have to go through that giant lists of powers while I'm dodging enemy attacks, because then I'm like too busy multitasking. So I'm going to make those 3 hotkeys for this specific fight, because it can be a son of a bitch when you're not prepared. Although I want to keep holding on to my Excel tank all the way to the boss, because I can't count on their helper robot to give me an Excel tank after I die to it. And having one chance to refill my entire health bar is so necessary with the final boss, because, the final boss is really, really tricky. And to be honest, it's not that different from a Mega Man Zero, Mega Man ZX, Mega Man 7 type final boss. It's just, in the Zero series and the ZX series, you could always refill your sub-tank and use them multiple times. And with Mighty Number 9, you don't have that. It's a multi-form boss where if you die to the second form, you have to refight the first form over and over and over again. And when you don't have a healing supply to refill your health, to constantly fight it over and over again because you keep dying, because you're still learning its patterns and stuff, the first playthrough of this game took me forever. I was stuck on the final boss for at least an hour, and by minute 40, I was getting real fucking frustrated with it, man. I was getting so annoyed by it. Also, yes, that is not my capture device. Anytime you use the bomb on those lifeform things and turn them into cubes, the frame rate goes to shit. I must say, the PlayStation 4 version of Mighty Number 9 is the most stable version of the game anywhere. If you played this on the Wii U, if you played this on Steam, I'm sure you've noticed a whole bunch of bad frame rate issues. It has some in the PS4 version, but for the most part, it's been pretty good. And I found it only really gets bad here when you blow up all the lifeform things with the bombs. But, yeah. I've only played the PS4 version, but this is actually pretty stable in comparison to the other ones. I've heard horror stories about the Wii U one. Apparently the load times in the Wii U one are terrible. Which, I'm sorry, Nintendo fans, I'm sorry. Okay, folks, this boss is a son of a bitch. This is the first form of Trinity, and it's the Yellow Devil. Oh, God! Okay, so this second form is much more annoying, and again, if you die to this form, you have to redo the first form all over again, which is so fucking annoying. But you'll be moving a lot faster. Never stay in the middle of the room, because goddamn Trinity will always keep popping up from the middle and surprise attacking you and making you lose a lot of health, because it just loves to spawn in the middle, and that is absolutely something you gotta watch out for. Now, I'm doing a really specific trick with the sword ability. This is something you can do with the first form when it's doing its Yellow Devil attack as well, but when you're slashing your sword constantly with Brandish, he has an invulnerability period when you're swinging your sword. Right now, I just use my XL tank to refill my health. I only get one of those. If I die, the next few playthroughs are going to be really annoying. But if you keep slashing with the sword with Brandish, like, enemy attacks actually pass by you. Like the Yellow Devil attack, the orbs will just go right through you, and you can just keep standing there spamming the sword slash ability, just slashing, 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 and you'll actually be fine. So what happens here is Trinity is raining a whole bunch of, you know, orbs from the sky that are going down on me, but because I keep slashing with the sword, they're mostly missing me for the most part. I get real close to Trinity at this point, and I dash towards the wall, so that by contact, just by being in my proximity, I am draining her Zell, even though I'm not charging into her. Because if you try dashing into her, it won't be like the other bosses we fought up to this point. You will take contact damage, and again, you need all the health you can get. But yeah, folks, that's the final boss. I made it look really easy, but believe me, it is a lot harder than it looks, and you only get one health refill. The end. Seriously, what the fuck? I remember I spent an hour taking on the final boss, my first playthrough, and then this was the ending I got for beating Trinity, and I was just like, oh, come on. That's the ending? Really? God, this game. So yeah, folks, that is Mighty Number 9. This is the game that Mega Man fans were anticipating ever since 2013. And boy, what a disappointment. Now look, I want to get the pros out of the way. I do think that the control on Beck is really tight. I think that the running and dashing mechanics are really solid, and it's fun to traverse through these levels as Beck. I don't have any problem with his weight or his momentum. I think he handles perfectly fine to what I would want from a Mega Man type character. The boss fights? I really like the boss fights for the most part, and the only real problem I have with Trinity is just that this game doesn't have a traditional Mega Man style energy tank system. If I was allowed to carry 4 like it's Mega Man 2, then Trinity wouldn't even be that big of a deal. It would just be like every other ZX game, every Zero game, every other Mega Man game where the final boss is kind of fucking challenging, you know? Like, I love Mega Man 7. Dr. Wily in Mega Man 7 is a son of a bitch, but at least I have 5 health refills in that game so I can afford to take more damage. Sigma in Mega Man X was an asshole. You had to fight both his dog, him, and his giant mecha robot dog form in one go. Otherwise, you had to go all the way back and refight all of those phases all over again. But again, with Mega Man X, you had 4 sub-tanks to hold on to your precious little life. And it just would have been better to have more than one with Mighty Number 9. Not to have this Excel tank that, again, if you die and you didn't use it, it's gone from your inventory, and you don't really get a second one unless the helper robot decides to give you one. And if you've been doing really good at the game, then the helper robot never gives you an Excel tank, and you always have to go fighting that entire boss on 1 life bar. It can be pretty goddamn annoying, let me tell ya. But when it comes to the Mighty Numbers, I like mostly all of the boss fights there. I like the boss fights that happen in the Robot Factory. I don't particularly love Call's canine boss, but, you know, I like some of the stage designs. I don't think it's all a complete wash. I think that Seismic's level has a lot of spike annoyances. The Capitol building has a checkpoint problem. I don't know why those pink buzzsaws are in Dynatron's stage. But for the most part, I don't think a lot of the levels are terrible. Control, boss fights, the level design are not deal breakers for me, you know? I do think there's a playable game in here, I really do. But it's just surrounded with so much problems. I've already talked about the Excel tank. I've already talked about how you can't select powers from the pause menu. I haven't talked about the music. You know, aside from this Mega Ran track we're hearing right now, the music is completely forgettable. If you asked me, what does Countershade's level sound like? I don't know. What about Cryo's level? What does that sound like? I don't know. I can tell you the boss theme because I hear that over and over and over again, but as for the regular soundtrack, completely forgettable, doesn't hold up to the rock anthems of Mega Man's past, and I just, it's a pretty forgettable soundtrack. This game is a technical fuck-up on the Wii U. It's a technical fuck-up on Steam and stuff. I found the PS4 version to be the most stable, but it does have its fair share of glitches. And don't even touch the online co-op mode, because, oh my god, even though they said they delayed the game because of that feature, it is still bugged up the ass and does not work very well, and I don't plan on doing an extra video to show it off. The story is incredibly boring. It's got so many gray characters with so much telling but no showing, you know? And for a Mega Man type story, it's just really boring, and children shouldn't have to be subjected to these awful, awful dialogue scenes where everyone's just standing around in a blue room and talking. You know, I've already gone over so many of the problems of Mighty Number 9 that keep it from being a really great game. There's a good game buried in here, and there's a lot of redesign that needs to happen in order to make it great, but, you know, it still has tons of problems, and I totally understand why someone would think it was one of the worst games of 2016. I don't agree with that. I think it's a little more average, below average than that. Maybe a 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10 type experience. Not a good score by any means. But I don't think it was one of the worst things I played that year. No, the worst game I played in 2016, that would be Star Fox Zero. That game sucked! Oh! So yeah, this was Mighty Number 9. I figured people wanted to see me play this because I'm a big Mega Man fan. So there you go. This is my playthrough of Mighty Number 9. And oh, look at this credit sequence. They managed to give a shout out to every single Kickstarter backer who donated to the Kickstarter, even if they were anonymous and therefore were just a generous backer. This credit sequence that we're watching right now, no shit, this credit sequence goes on for, I kid you not, 3 hours. The list of Kickstarters is so long and so slow, it lasts for 3 hours. What? Why would you do it that way? Why wouldn't you just say, and thank you to all of our wonderful backers, or something? I mean, you know, after a while, you will get the inclination to skip the credits, because 2.5 hours later, no, seriously, I'm still going through it. 70,000 people, 70,000 names, and I was just like, should I actually, like, record all of it? Should I record all of the Kickstarter credits and commentate over all of it? Would that be a funny video? And then I discovered I had nothing to talk about for 3 hours, and no, that would not be a funny video at all. That would be miserable. I'd have to invite so many of my friends to make that fun, but yeah, we're skipping this.
Then only time will tell if this mighty number 9, this Beck, is a blessing or a curse.
It was a curse, Dr. Blackwell. It was a curse. And they still never released the 3DS or Vita versions that they promised they were going to release. So, if you don't own a Wii U, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, then I imagine handheld owners must be feeling pretty gypped right about now. Hey. Mighty Number 9 is a damn shame. A damn shame. Anyway, folks, see you next time. I am the Great Clement. Toodles.